Thank you so much for joining me today from Valdymas Intelligence. Today we're talking about systems thinking. You will enjoy this lecture. I just need you to settle down and understand me in context. Thank you. So, what's a system? I would love to make you picture it this way. Just look at the human organism. As a person, look at how we're all made up of cells. These cells integrate together, and if they perform similar function, we call them tissues. When you integrate these tissues together, if they perform similar function, we call them organs. And for organs, if you integrate organs together to perform a similar function of sustaining an organism, then we call it organ systems. That's system. So it means when you talk about a system, you're talking about the holistic view of an idea or an ideal, as the case may be. So I need you to think in systems. Today I'm going to make you become someone who thinks in concepts, who thinks in frameworks, and who thinks in model. Please stay tuned. Transformation isn't just about achieving operational excellence in an organization. And I think this is where we get it wrong. Quite a lot of leaders just pursue after operational excellence. But you see, operational excellence is supposed to be the launching pad for system-wide transformation. Systems thinking is the platform for transforming the people, their culture, and for perfecting the strategic execution needed to achieve systems transformation. So, when you're pursuing excellence in digital transformation of your organization, pursuing excellence in achieving people, the team to work together, evaluation frameworks, these are just to be launching pads for you to drive true transformation for your organization. So the platform is excellence. If you are still operating at sub-excellent level, then you cannot talk about transformation. That is where I'm going to. So if you look at multi-million organizations today, what they first achieve is operational excellence in the way they manufacture. If it's a manufacturing company, if it's a regulatory agency, they first ensure they have formalized, standardized their process up to excellence. Then they can scale it to the next level. So the capacity to scale must be an inbuilt it must be inbuilt into the structure of the organization, just like it must be into you as an individual. So today my focus will be more on you, the individual, and the organization you're either working for or that you're trying to scale or build to sustainability. So that's my quote about systems thinking. Why do we need systems thinking? Because you see, I've met quite a lot of consultants, even alike, friends alike, that ask me, when you talk about this system thinking, what are you exactly talking about? I would love to use these 4 quotes to describe something. 2 of them are actually very similar, said by 2 different persons, but in different ways. The first one says, every system is perfectly designed to get the result it gets. So I want you to know as an individual today, the current result you're getting in your life and the potential for building greater results for tomorrow that you have in your life today. So listen to me clearly. The current result you have in your life today and the potential for generating future results in your life is based on the current system that you have in your life as we speak. Now, every system is perfectly designed to give you exactly what you are getting today. But I don't want you to limit it to what you're getting today, because what you're getting today might also be the launching pad for what you will get tomorrow. So as you're getting the result today, you're also building a pedestal for something you will get tomorrow. Let me paint a picture for you to understand. An organization just invested $10 billion into buying a machinery, and the machinery is supposed to produce and scale their production maybe 100 times. If you measure them by just the results they're getting today, you would say the organization is at a serious deficit. However, they've just procured a machine that has the capacity to scale their production. So meaning whatever result you're getting today and the potential result you're getting tomorrow is what a system is designed to generate for you. You do not rise to the level of your goals, my friend. You fall to the level of your system. You do not rise to the level of your goals. So I would love to explain this a little bit, because I just want you to I don't want you to assume you get what I'm saying. You see, you can set a goal in next year or at every different point that in the next 6 months, I want to have the capacity to buy a machine for maybe $2.5 million. And currently, your financial credibility can still get you, let's say, $100,000. Whatever goal you're setting that you say in 6 months, I can promise you that in 6 months, you would only fall to the level of system you build that is a little beyond this 100,000. You will not be able to achieve this because you don't have a systematic structure that can drive this amount of money. Unless you build, and I'm going to break down what a system is very soon. And that's why I need you to stay with me. You will not rise to the level of the target you're setting for your company. You would eventually, when you evaluate yourself sincerely, at the end of the period you've set, you will see that you've only achieved the level of the system-based capacity that you've built. I love to talk about system in this way, just to help you. You see, there's the design part of a system and there's the capacity part of a system. Just to help in a way, the design concept is just like you want to build a structure. So let's talk about building a structure. You go to meet an architect, you describe everything to them, you meet with a structural engineer, they talk about it and they put up a design. This design is more of a conceptual image and that is being buttered out into a physical paper. They can do all forms of 7D, 3D, any form of D designs, but it's still a design. Now, for you to interact with the real world, you need capacity. So it's a different thing to have design, but it's another thing to build capacity. So when we're talking about capacity, you're talking about the quality of minds of the people, capacity in terms of human resources, quality of financial access to financial resources that you have, financial capacity, quality of the machinery, the digital or technological leverages that you have. We're talking about technological capacity. We're also talking about socio-cultural, socio-political capacity. You may be connected, you may be strongly connected to political power that could support whatever you want to do, that would align policy to favor your organization. Those are socio-political capacity. So it's a different thing in your system to design something. It's another thing for that thing to be able to deal with the real world. So you must understand that you need to have a lens that says how you can interact in the real world. This is just a simple concept of the system. The reason why I went through this simple concept is because of this code. He says a bad system will beat a good person every time. A bad system, and you see, this is a popular saying. I think it's been attributed to Deming, it's been attributed to Peter Drucker, different people. Just like this first two statements were attributed to different people and said in different ways. But why do I love this statement? I love this statement because it is the nature of the system you design for yourself that would determine even if you as a person is going to excel. And that is why the place of planning and carefully designing is important if you're going to build anything of worth and of great influence. You would ask me the question, so why are you passionate about this system thing? I don't just get it. Yes, thank you for asking that question. This is the idea. There are two ways to get results. Number one, you can get results by random access. And number two, you can get results by building systems. So I have the world divided into two groups of nations. We have nations that they call the world of disorderliness. In the world of disorderliness, they generate results by random access. You see, they vote randomly, they select people into office randomly, they build companies randomly, they do everything randomly. In fact, guess what? They give birth to people randomly. There is no exact pattern to their family planning, no exact pattern to their nation building, no exact pattern to their power distribution, no exact pattern to their allocation of resources, no exact pattern to their core values, no exact pattern to formalizing and policy driving their processes, no exact pattern, no predictability, because those nations or those individuals have decided to operate their world in what we call the world of disorderliness. What gets to happen to them is that they get results today, it spikes down, they get another lucky boost tomorrow, it spikes down, they get another lucky boost maybe 10 years time, it spikes down, but the gap between this tomorrow and 10 years time, it's a period of suffering. Hence, you cannot live or build sustainability. You cannot scale a plan on random access to results, random access to outcome. So this is the reason why it is important to build system. When you build system, you will see the advantages of building system very soon. Just stay with me, please. Now, before I get to the advantages of building system, I want to help you break down the whole concept of system. I want you to view it from 5 different points. And please, I need you to be calm and understand with me. The first thing about a system is that there is the dynamics of timing to it. Look, every organization you join today, let's say you call it every organization you join today, let's call it CNN as an example. Let's say I join CNN today. The truth about it is, I am joining the sacrifice and labor of some people many years before I joined CNN. Someone conceptualized the idea, built it up. They've built it, it's the price, it's the blood of some people that I'm actually joining. Which means there is an historical perspective to any organization you're joining. Another thing you must know is that there's a cross-sectional present-day reality for that organization you're joining. And there's also the post-present day, which is the future, which is the futuristic potential. So, if you're talking about a system in any organization, or let me make it simple. Remember, you as an individual, you have a time in your life where you're just a single cell. You continue to multiply. That's your pre-life experience, developmental process, how you came to be. In fact, let me scale it further. You had parents, your parents had parents, right? Those are the historical context for you as a person. And that's why you took some things from your parents, from your grandparents, that is reflecting in you today. So there's something that is in CNN today as an organization that was from the idea battered by the original idea driver. So if you're joining an organization today and you just want things to change, you must understand that that organization has some historical perspective to it. And if you're the one that is crafting up an organization today, don't forget the life of that organization will be connected to your mind. And as long as it's connected to your mind, it will be connected to your history. That's one dimension of systems thinking that I need you to always analyze anytime you're evaluating a concept. Number 2 is the dynamics of people. I would explain these two further with 2 different slides as we go. I also have a slide to explain structures and processes. I want you to know that there is the place of culture and context. And ultimately, everywhere you go, you will see outcomes. Outcomes must be subjected to evaluation. Because if you do not subject it to evaluation, you won't even be able to, 1, determine causalities and association, and 2, you won't be able to determine if you're scaling up the impact of the outcome or it's actually scaling down automatically. So that's why it becomes important that anytime you want to assess something and you want to think in systems, you must be able to think across those 5 basic concepts. So stay with me as I try to explain this 5 basic concepts with the next slide. So let's look at this modified Donabedian quality concept. Avedi's Donabedian was one of the fathers of healthcare quality that speaks to the idea of structure plus processes is equal to outcome. But I tried to break it down into a little distinct, and I would take my time to explain this slide so that you would get it. But one thing I want you to first appreciate before I start explaining this slide is a quote according to Peter. Peter said, systems thinking is a discipline for seeing wholes. You must see the whole picture. It's a framework for seeing interrelationships rather than things, for seeing patterns of change rather than static snapshot. Don't forget, I talked about the time dimension of system, so you can't just be seeing just the exact snapshot of today. You must connect it to the history of that thing and connect it to the potential for the future. Number two is that you must see patterns of change in the processes and in the structure, in the context and the culture as well. You must see interrelationships between the culture and the structure and the processes and the kind of outcomes and impacts that you're generating. The next thing that is also crucial, that is dear to my heart from this, is that is a discipline that sees the holistic picture. So that means whoever wants to design must see the full picture. Just like you must tell an architect the full picture of what the building will be, it's his own responsibility to now go and think about how each unit of the building would integrate together. What's the connection between the door and the living room? And if there's going to be an office in the building, if there won't be an office, the restroom, if there's going to be a kitchen, a kitchenette, store, a bedroom, if there's going to be all these things, everything has to be planned and integrated together in a scientifically sound pattern that once submitted to a regulatory agency, they would also reevaluate it and say, okay, this is in alignment with principles according to current professional knowledge or professional experiences. And so it's going to be something that can be approved. Otherwise, it would be rejected. So because of that, every nation that has become great do not generate results through random access. What they do to generate results is through system building. And so as a person, if you want to become great, you must also embrace the idea of systems thinking. Systems thinking is what differentiates socialized mind from transforming mind. Is what the strength, the depth of your capacity to think in system is what differentiates an evolving mind from a transforming mind. So I urge you today to think in systems, to understand that looking at the whole and creating a design and a capacity for driving the whole is actually your role as a leader in an organization or as the leader of your personal life. So let me now explain this table. You have the place of structure. Structures would speak to, number one, how you have formalized things. And you see, you hear about people saying document the process. Make sure there are policies driving this process. This is crucial if you want to build great organization. Everything must be documented, must be planned properly. So formalizing the process is actually the first step in building a sound structure. Number two is that you must have clarity on allocation of resources. Allocation of resources? This, I'm still talking about structure. And so I've had it severally. People ask me, what is this structure thing you're saying I don't have? And I tell them it's a very simple thing. How do you formalize your process? Don't just give people position without a formalized authority, because the third thing will now be authority. Are you centralizing the authority or distributing the authority? That's a form of, you need to clearly define that. So we've spoken about formalization of the whole process, allocation of resources. We've spoken about authority. Then we also need to talk about the hierarchy. Hierarchical nature of the authority. We also need to talk about the specialization of the capacities you have in the organization. Then part of structure is infrastructure. So what you call building, machinery, cars, equipment, name them, instrument that you're using to do your job, all those are under infrastructure. And they are still categorized under structure. I now want to help you to distinguish something today. Any process that you have formalized, any process that you've written a policy about and you've signed and sealed the policy, trained the people about it, is no longer a process. It is now a structured process. So it will be categorized as structure. So if I bring out the policy in my organization for recruitment of staff, and it's signed, sealed, and dated, and you can see step by step how we do things, then that recruitment process is no longer a process. It's now a standardized structure. I hope you've picked that as a lesson. Now, for processes, these are the actions or the activities that we do, the procedures, the way we make things happen. That difference between strategic and tactical execution on a day-to-day basis, from the leadership to the followership, that monitoring, that actual process of making things happen defines everything under processes. How you now convert processes to structure is a great work for leaders in an organization, and even you as an individual. But I'll give you an example. This is a very clear example. If you want to build a life that strengthens, that would give you the capacity to be able to say, I have an asset base of, let's say, $200,000. A system thinking person will explain it to you this way. He will tell you today, how much are you earning? If you say, okay, I'm earning $5,000 every 2 weeks, or let's even say $5,000 a month. A system structured person will tell you, if you want to separate $1,000, you will need 200 months. If you're ready to pressure yourself a little extra and do $2,000, you will need 100 months. If you can stretch yourself a little further and do, let's say, $3,000 per month to set aside to build a capital base of $200,000, you will need, let's say, 66 or 67 months. 67 months. Now, a system thinking person would help you break it down. Look at that, what I'm explaining. I'm explaining the structure of allocation of resources, which is under structure. I'm explaining the processes of how you will separate that money. And I'm also talking about it over a time frame. So everything you say according to Donald Bidian's concept follows an order of time. The first question I ask you is, how much are you earning today? You must have an history on how you got to this $5,000. And you must have a future possibility of it increasing. Just like you may have a future possibility of it declining, actually. So there is a time concept between the integration of structure and processes in the building of a system that now generates an output over time. This output is a product of time. So my initial output is that at a point you would have $1,000, right? At a point you would have $10,000. At a point you probably have $100,000, and at a point maybe your output will be $200,000. Now your end goal is not actually to get $200,000. Your end goal might be to leverage that capital to procure a real asset, a real estate, an asset. Let's say the asset is now to buy a warehouse. To buy a warehouse that is worth $2 million, let's say $2 million. I'm just giving an example now. Now, don't forget that the end goal is also not just owning a warehouse. You probably would want to rent it out, or you want to use it to start doing something, to manufacture, to create something. Now, whatever you're creating will be the next level of impact. We can measure that by, let's say, you're now able to produce 50,000 tons of a chemical agent per month. Now, we can still break down this outcome and say this is also an outcome. Okay, the further impact of this outcome is that what's the number of lives that is being rescued by what you're producing. That is how to break things down. So, if you want to become great, all you need to do is to look at your current structure, analyze the processes that is going to happen, think this through over time. Don't forget that you are operating within a context. That's the culture and the context. Whatever you're saying, you're operating in a context. The context I'm operating here is the context of dollars. I'm also operating under the context that if I'm able to save consistently over 67 months, that will be like 5 years and 7 months, right, I will be able to leverage a banking system. That's the concept here. If I think about this banking system in a country that is a world of disorderliness, I may not be able to procure this outcome. But the reason why I can bank on it in nations, in developed nations of the world, is I can clearly reach an agreement with my bank, and they can see the progression to which I'm saving money, and say, based on this 5-year progression, then you are credit worthy for us to give you this amount of money. And so I'm using money so that it will, one, get your attention, and then it's easy. I can mathematically do it. I can also do the same thing by saying I want to become a pharmacist. And the goal of being a pharmacist is to impact the life of people and prevent medication error. That's the impact, prevent medication error. If that is the impact, but I need to ask myself, what do I have currently in my life? What is the formalized system in my life? What's the formalized credential I have in my life? Then I look at the processes of applying into pharmacy school, become a pharmacist over time, forgetting that it's within a country, within a context. And then at different points, I graduate from first year to second year to up to fourth year. I become a pharmacist. That's the outcome. I start working, and then I start creating that impact. I've used career to explain this process. So when you're talking about a system thinking person, you're not seeing a pharmacist just as the work is doing. You're seeing him in the light of the schools he had attended. You're seeing him in the light of everything within the context he's operating within. And so that also helps you to appreciate the fact that he has a culture where he's operating from under this context. In that culture, there is the people, there is the interpersonal relationship with people, there are prevailing ethical values and principles in that environment. There's the language for him to communicate in that environment, and there are some communications that has to go in that environment. You also must understand that because it's a culture, there will be some standards, some symbols that have been created even before you got into that system. And then there will be institutional memories and histories, which will also be related to historical dimension of even the school of pharmacy that you're attending, or even the whole world of pharmaceutical science that you're studying. So when we say systems thinking, you're looking at the system as a whole. You're looking at it with a framework. If you don't think that way, you will never be able to harmonize every part of the ecosystem, as you won't be able to predictably determine the results. I hope you get the idea now. So the idea is that you're looking at it within the current culture and context that I am, based on the geopolitics, the eco-politics, the technological disruption or transformation happening in that environment. I'm able to analyze it to say, if I get this structure together, and I am ready to go through this process over time, these are the outputs in a short while. This will be the outcome after a while, beyond the short while, and then this will be my long-term socio-economic consequences of my decision. And that determines what the whole system stands for. With this, I've explained all the 5 dimensions that I was talking about. The dynamics of time, the dynamics of stakeholder is one thing I said I would explain with the next slide. The dynamics of your context and culture, the dynamics of your outcome. And so at every point, if you're actually someone who subjects a system to thorough evaluation, to sincere evaluation, you will be able to distinguish if your processes are the right process, or if you need to go back and tweak something. Because don't forget the statement, Paul Bartholdi, every system is perfectly designed to get the results it's producing. So if you look at your life as a person, whatever result you're getting today, that's what you have designed. And that's the amount of capacity you have been able to build. Don't forget, I said system has 2 dimensions, the design phase and the capacity building phase. That's the amount of capacity you've been able to build. However, the advantage with the mixture of design and capacity is that it could also represent the potential for the future. Because a 500 level medical student or a resident doctor already has the capacity to become a consultant. So with that, he has the capacity for a future better result. But if you're looking at the result you're getting today, you may be demoralized. But the idea is You know, in a year, in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, you have the capacity to generate higher results. But you are in transition. You're running the race of time. So a sincere evaluation is what would differentiate if the processes are right, in the right direction to generate the impact, or the processes are wrong. And this is where you must be able to distinguish between what is causally related to something and what is just an associated factor. So I will tell you today, the primary driving factor of a car today is for it to move you from a point A to a point B. The three things I see structurally that is essential to achieve that is the engine, gear system, and engine, gear, and axle system, the wheels, and maybe the steering of the car. They are the crucial causality for motion, for transporting you from one point to another. Now, every other thing that is coupled with a car today are associated factors. There are factors that bring comfort, factors that bring other dimensions that a car can produce, entertainment, air condition or heat when it's winter, and all these things. Armrest, good seats, leather seats, and all these things are just variant of something. Speedometers and all those things that are to tell you the speed with which you're traveling, and all these extra associated factors. So one thing I want you to ask yourself every time you're taking a decision, either as an organization or as a person. I'm a lean, agile person. I prevent waste. I prevent the waste of time, waste of material, waste of resources, human inclusive. So because of that, the question you should ask yourself today is, what is exactly the right principle that generates results? What is the causal factor that will generate the primary result I want? If you are able to answer that, then other things that are associated factors, you can tweak them. They could be methods, procedures, dimensions, on how those things will be done. You can tweak them to minimize waste and maximize productivity, or maximize performance and then maximize profitability in the long run. This is the goal of thinking in systems. So if you look at it, I said systems thinking guarantees predictability of outcomes, and that is why I'm passionate about it. I want organizations, leaders as well, to think through systems. The truth about it is it's only humans that can be led. We can only manage systems or structures. But for humans, we have to provide leadership. And because of that, the predictability of outcome is crucial for everything we're building. Number two is capacity to scale. I told you from the beginning that the launching pad for transformation is operational excellence. If you do not build a system that has operational excellence, then forget about the capacity to scale the system. It's when you have stabilized your system to generate maybe 12 tons. That's when you can now say, okay, can we scale to 50 tons? You must achieve operational excellence and stability at a level, then you can scale to the next level. Then even the sustainability of the process over time, because systems are going to be subjected to stress. It comes times and times over, and that is why life comes in forms of cycles. So systems are going to be subjected to stress, to test. The structures are going to be put to test. The capacity of how well you have formalized your policy, and that's why you must continuously revisit them. How well you are allocating your resources, how your authority distribution is, hierarchy in your organization is well arranged, and then what are your leadership core values, the core values and principles in your organizations that drive you. These are all structured based initiatives that drives and keeps an organization. This also determines the kind of brand, conceptual image of that organization in the minds of your consumer, of your customers, of your clients. All these, if they have been formalized, are under structure. And these are things that some are actually tangible, some are intangible, but they are actually equal to great potential for wealth for that organization. And for you as an individual, they also potential for greatness for you. So for you to drive sustainability over a long period of time, and for you to be able to pivot and diversify and divest and increase your capacity, you must build sustainability into the DNA of whatever you're doing. And this is the goal. That's the goal of system thinking as a whole. Now follow me to the next slide. I intentionally kept this slide and the one after it because I just wanted to take an extra I want to break it down a little bit more. If you work in an organization or for an organization, I want you to know that you will have to interact with multiple stakeholders. In the bit of interacting with multiple stakeholders, this is the whole idea. The first thing is every stakeholder have their diverse opinion. They have their different interests. They have their changing priorities. Let me give you an example. I learned about this story, but I'm going to craft it or adapt it into what I want to do. So consider two pathologists in the laboratory. They got two living worms and they threw one into water and one into alcohol. And before they knew it, in matter of let's say like a minute to two, the worm in the 98% ethyl alcohol died, and the other one in water kept swimming, finding its way through the water. And one of the pathologists says, wow, see the reason why people should not take alcohol. This thing will fry their tissues. This thing will kill them. No wonder they say it causes cirrhosis. The other guy looked at it and said, wow, no wonder if you take alcohol, it will reduce the number of worms living within you. Did you see the difference? Two different perspectives. One is saying, no wonder they said don't take alcohol. He's thinking about the tissue of the host taking the alcohol. The other one is thinking about the worm in the host taking the alcohol. Meaning that people come with different perspectives to every scenario. So one thing you must expect is that you would always have different capacities of people to drive different perspectives to everything you're doing as an initiative in any system. So when you set out to say, I want to become a pharmacist, someone will come out with an initiative and say, and then why? And then so what would you become of it? You must check what's their opinion, what's their interest, what's their priority, because those priorities can also change. What's their desires? I've had scenarios of parents forcing kids to study a course just to fulfill their own long lost ideal, and they just wanted the child to fulfill that. And I've had children who actually were the ones who picked those careers and say, no, I'm going to do it. So, varying approaches. Some would say, I would do a first degree before studying another course. Some would say, okay, I will study the course directly after my high school. These are different approaches. I can say, okay, I will study for a while, work for 3-4 years, and then complete my studies. Another person will say, I would just love to sail through. Some will say, I want to study virtually. Some will say, I want to study in class. And there's also the concept of blended learning as well. So all these are factors that you need to understand as a stakeholder. All these are concepts that affect the people part of every system that you're driving. The people would have their opinions, they would have their interests, they would have their priorities, their desires, their approaches, their perspective, and they will also have their existential capacities to deliver results at different standards. One thing you must also pay attention to is that these same people have their fears and anxiety. They have their doubts and worries, and they also have their limitation. No matter how brilliant your program manager is, if he has a limitation of the amount of resources allocated to your department, you are limited in that department to the strength of what that result can bring with the amount of intelligence in his capacity and the integral capacity of the team that's available by that time, unless something changes. So because of that, you must pay attention to the stakeholder dimension of whatever you're doing, because this determines the capacity of your system to generate results. So I hope I'm able to explain the stakeholder perspective properly. And then the time perspective, I just wanted you to know that one of the crucial reasons why you need to take time seriously is that knowledge management is a product of time. You will learn some things in history. They say time teaches so many things, right? Time teaches so many people so many things. If you're a listener to so many people, you would learn so many things that they have learned over so many times, and it will help you to compress that time in a short time for you to maximize results. So that is, you do not have to waste time to spend the number of years they have taken to learn that thing, and then you will be able to catalyze yourself positively ahead of others who have not exposed themselves to those learning over time. And the idea is that by historical perspective, only evaluated experiences that are carefully reflected upon generate results. The progression or passage of time does not generate results just like that. It's only when you evaluate the experiences, reflect on it, find the missing link, connect them together, integrate efforts to making the differences that needs to be made based on the current understanding of your own current time. And that's where the result, that's where the difference would be. So, historical perspective, reflection and evaluation of results. The second part is that the present scenario, as you are presently, you must be evolving. You must focus on asking the right questions, not just getting the right answer. Because when you ask the right, and it takes a lot of depth of knowledge to know the right questions to ask. Because it is only the right questions that bat right answer. I've said it before many times, that if you ask emotional questions, people will give you emotional responses. If you ask sound rational questions, people would give you sound and rational answers. So the kind and the way, the approaches you're asking the question determines the kind of answers you get. Hence, if you are getting wrong answers, you're probably asking the wrong question, and you need to flip your learning cone to a way in which you can ask the right question so that you can get the right answer. So when people tear you down, or you feel they tore you down when you ask the question, it's probably because you asked the question with the wrong rather. So because of that, you need to focus on how you answer the question, the context with which you answer the question, the depth of knowledge to which you are asking the question, because it guarantees what the future holds for you in that system, or what the kind of. And I also want you to know that for the dynamics of time, time is your responsibility. It also requires a lot of faithfulness. You must understand that you have 24 hours across board for everyone. It's not increasing for someone else more than you. So the amount of responsibility and commitment to what you want to do, faithfulness to your goal that you want to give in, that energy dimension, that engagement. Imagine if your gear does not engage with your engine, would you produce motion? So it's the quality of the engagement and the strength of that engagement per unit time, the rate of power generated in that engagement, that determines what your future will be by the dynamics of time. So strategic thinking, systems thinking, these are thinking that analyzes your yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and use it to craft a future possibility that is predictable, that can be scaled, and that is sustainable. I said predictability, scalability, and sustainability. So because of that, you must, for the sake of future possibilities, you must subject yourself to deep learning and innovative capacities. You must subject yourself to leadership collaboration, because that is where you can guarantee a transformational impact. I would love to end it this way by saying systems thinking is strongly linked with deep learning, sound analysis, and breakthrough awareness. When you hear people shout eureka, eureka, they didn't just land at eureka that day. They've been in depth of meditation, trying to connect missing links. Missing links in what? Missing links in concepts, in frameworks, in models, which will enable them to unearth the functional and non-functional connections in every part of their ecosystem. Because when they're able to do that, they're able to integrate that part of their ecosystem into their whole world experience. That is the goal of being a system thinker. That is the only pathway towards transformation. So if you want to transform yourself and transform your organization, I mention it as a transformed mind, you will be matured, and you'll be matured in your thinking, in your seeing, in your learning, in your speaking, and even in your writing. Because you have to be matured in all those concepts, that means you must be able to sync up, link up, connect missing details together, integrate them together, and then be able to use them to birth a new awareness. This new awareness will come with a different capacity that can drive another level of change. And if you keep the consistency of doing this, before you know it is only a matter of time, you would have transformed your structure, transformed your culture, transformed even your processes, and ultimately your outcome and impact. Thank you so much for listening to me. I am Dr. Joshua Kolawole. I'm a global transformational leadership trainer with Valdymas Intelligence. Bye.